What if your Figma design could become a working app just by asking? In this episode of The Next Wave, our guest is David Kosnick from Figma. He showed us a demo of Figma Make, a mind-blowing new tool that turns your designs into live working code with nothing more than a prompt. Whether you're a designer, a founder, or just someone dreaming up ideas on the train, this is the next evolution of software creation. David walks us through live demos of how Figma Make builds dashboards, games, and real data-powered apps on the fly. And he shares Figma's vision and what the future design and creation might look like in a world of AI native workflows. If you want to see the future of product design, this is the episode for you. But before we get started, we spend a lot of time on these episodes, and it would mean a lot to me if you could hit the subscribe button. It helps us grow the show and get on better guests to provide more value to you. So without further ado, let's jump in with David Kosnick from Figma. David, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
Yeah. If you want to start off, explain what Figma Make is a little bit.
So Figma AI has been around a couple of years, and we have a ton of AI features embedded in all of our products. So you can use them in FigJam to summarize stickies and help you brainstorm. Inside of Figma Slides, you can generate images and rewrite text. Inside of Figma Sites, you can fill in content as you're building out your site. We've totally rebuilt our search engine to use multimodal embeddings, so it can search by text, by frame, or by image. But the thing we're most excited to talk about and focus on today is our biggest net new Gen AI native product, which we're calling Figma Make. So I can give you a quick run through of what that is.
Yeah.
Cool. So Figma Make is a prompt to code tool that lets you get started with either natural language or a screenshot or a Figma frame, and it will write code for you and show you an interactive playable version of the app that you can riff with. We've built it to be multiplayer first, so multiple people can be in here chatting alongside each other using code, visuals, and language. So just to give you a quick sense of it, I'm going to use one of these starting prompts for a data dashboard. So you can see here the prompt is create an intuitive and visually appealing dashboard that provides users with a whole bunch of more specific things. So I'm going to go ahead and send this off, and you'll see here the model is starting to reason. So it's starting to think about what different components it's going to need. It's summarizing its action plan, and now it's going ahead and starting to write some TypeScript files. Over here, we're seeing the code starting to stream in from the model based on this prompt. You can see there's actually a whole file structure of different components here of code that's been preloaded and generated by this. And sometimes it can take a couple of minutes depending on the complexity of the thing you're asking for. So while this goes ahead and streams, I'm going to pull a little bit of Martha Stewart and swap this out for another version of the exact same prompt, which I already ran ahead of time.
Oh, it works.
So this is the same prompt. You can see the whole set of reasoning it did, and it went ahead and created the first version of this dashboard application. You'll see one thing it just immediately followed up with is, please note, Figma Make is not designed for collecting personally identifiable information, but we can actually add a whole database to this to make the data real.
Oh, wow.
So we can go ahead, I'll show you that in a second. But we recognize for lots of applications, from prototypes to internal tools to straight up things you want to publish, being able to persist data, real data, and connect to data sources is really important. So anyway, we'll look real quick at what I actually made. So it says, here's the dashboard. You can see there's some interactivity and hover states on this chart here, a couple different charts showing different breakdowns. So this actually, looks kind of nice. There's a hover state. There's a list of project entries. Some of this stuff is not fully hooked up, like this add new entry button doesn't seem to do anything yet.
But it gets you started, right? This is like considered, it seemed like a great way to prototype something.
Yeah, totally. And I think, one of the things we've really seen too is that this brings a whole team together where, we've really optimized for designers, which I'll talk about more in a second. But everyone can come in here and start riffing with, and building on this simply with language. And so I'm just going to go ahead and create a new project here. This is a test project using Supabase, which is a third-party tool we integrate with that basically can host data. And so you can see here, it stood up a database based on the underlying schema of the prompt of the project I was describing, where it's going to store this data. And it's also starting to write now server code, not just front-end code, that will be able to handle what happens when you click buttons and you want to add new things and store them. And so this is a really powerful piece of functionality to make these things long-lived.
That's awesome. And so it just figured out the schema you needed. And I guess if there's anything that you might have missed, it'll go and update the database and add new tables and everything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
And this is something you can iterate on over time. Say, add new columns, add another table for users, not just for, revenue as an example right here. And so, yeah, this is a, really powerful sort of building block to make even richer experiences. And so a lot of what we're starting to see people, use this for is building richer, sort of higher fidelity prototypes and interactions to prove out ideas and get more feedback on them. And so traditionally in the product design process, making mocks in Figma is great. Even making traditional prototypes in Figma where you hook up noodles to connect, workflows is really powerful, but also it's kind of time consuming. And there's also a limit to what the fidelity is of those experiences. There is no data stored on them. They're not actually code backed, so you don't get the full fidelity of interactions. And so what we've seen is people using this, both if they don't have the skill set to engage in Figma design as fully as other, professional designers, and also for designers to pick up where Figma has traditionally ended. A lot of designers don't know how to code that, that deeply. And so it feels like a superpower to get something where you can bring in your designs and keep going.
Yeah, totally. I mean, for a little bit of background, I mean, I'm an okay designer and an okay coder. I'm not amazing at either one. And I've always, when I use Figma, I was like, okay, I spent a lot of time making something beautiful, and then to go actually code it, oh my God, it's a lot of work. And usually when I go code it, I end up getting lazy and it looks slightly different. I'm like, okay, that's good enough. That's close enough. So I was like, if I could actually get my beautiful design and press a button in the future and then be able to tweak it in AI, that would be amazing. So I'm hoping that's where this eventually goes.
Totally, 100%. So while this is tracking on the database piece, which you can imagine, I just wanted to show sort of a couple other pieces. So actually over here, I did have an example where I converted the same output into the Figma standard design, simple design system, which we've open sourced, and using those set of style links instead. So you can see it's now using this sort of Figma branded aesthetic. And we're excited to do over time much more here. Hear a lot of requests to use my literal components. And I can show you the workflows we have for those today as well.
Yeah, that seems powerful. I've been using Claude Code and Factory both a lot more to create prototypes and just play around. And one thing is getting them to actually follow design system. The best thing I figured out is you can kind of figure out, you can kind of map out part of your design system in a markdown file or something and hand it to them, but then it keeps forgetting. So if you had something just directly in Figma, it seems better.
Totally. Yeah. And I should mention as well, people are used to riffing and editing in Figma. So it's not just in prompts. You can use this kind of magic pointer tool and start to go ahead and just riff on things in line.
And you can do that with your team. There is the multiplayer aspect of this. So
exactly. Yeah. So I can go ahead and share this file and everyone sees the same thing, just like you expect from Figma design. And actually multiple people can chat. So you see my avatar here in a multiplayer file. You'll see other people's avatars with their prompts. And something we've invested a lot in is making that work across modalities. So if someone makes changes, visually here versus via prompts or even versus via code, it all plumbs through to everyone else. And so we want this to be a surface where an engineer can come and riff with the PM and the designer and make their own version on okay, here's how exactly this should feel.
Okay, let's be honest. Your AI prompts aren't giving you the results you deserve. But with a little coaching, you can transform from basic prompts to engineering conversations that get you exactly what you want from ChatGPT. That's what this playbook delivers. Not just random prompts, but a step-by-step system with the exact techniques top AI professionals use every day. You'll have your own personalized prompt engineering system that delivers consistent results. Get it right now. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description below. Now let's get back to the show. And how does the multiplayer work with the prompting?
Basically, what happens while a prompt is running is that, you get a loading state and you can pause it to run a new one. And so everyone gets that same experience. So you can either wait for the thing that's been running to finish running, or you can kill someone's stuff before you. And we found that works pretty well so far. And, if I want to start riffing on this, I could have an inline contextual prompt for it. But I could also jump on over and see, exactly the piece of code that corresponds to this and start changing that directly as well there if I have that context.
Yeah, I grew up in IRC. For me, seeing this, I'm imagining some crazy collaborative project where everyone's just messing around and making something together and just sharing the link online. It would be fun. But
Totally.
Yeah, I could see how teams could actually get real use out of this. So yeah.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I think that's been the magic of Figma always is like Figma was born on the web. It was multiplayer first. It's just sharing a link. I think there are starting to be more and more of these, prompt to code tools, but I think, we have put a ton of effort in to making this work really well with your team across different personas and modalities.
Yeah, I am curious about that. I mean, obviously, Lovable's been taking off, and then there's V0, and there's a few different ones. So, I mean, some of the functionality looks similar, but what's the main difference? Is the main difference is it's more like designer first, and you can actually kind of get in there and tinker with the designs and things like that.
Great question. I'd say first and foremost, this whole category is really early.
Yeah.
Like we talk about the whole space, like none of these things existed like a year ago.
Right.
It's like this whole space is getting figured out right now, which is really exciting. And a lot of that is, building on the new capabilities of these models and trying to figure out the workflows that make sense. And so I'd say, right now we've invested a ton in multiplayer as the sort of core thing you come to love and expect from Figma, and a lot on interop with the rest of Figma. So the design systems piece I explained is one, and maybe I'll give a quick demo for a second, which is, say you have a mock, you're trying to build a sort of interactive visualizer for a solar system. This is a traditional, Figma layer just from Figma Design. I'm going to literally hit copy paste on this thing and go over here and say, make this interactive. And what you'll notice here is like there's a little Figma icon here. Like this is not actually just a screenshot. This is all of the rich structured data that comes over with this. It's every layer name, It's every token, every variable, every property. And we have done a ton of work on quality to be the best place at generating high fidelity results from designs as a starting point. And we've seen a really high percentage of our users start with designs as well. And we've optimized for that. Even in the blank prompt box, we say at the top, like, put your design in here. And so I'd say one of the things, we've really focused on is taking the workflows designers already have in Figma and letting you go much further to express things at a higher fidelity through code, through interactivity in a way that's much lower effort than people have had before.
Yeah, this seems like a natural evolution of the product, right? Because when I think about Figma, when it was first suggested that I use it, I used to use Photoshop back then. I still use it a little bit, but using Photoshop to design a website is a pain. Like just dealing with all the different layers and how it's just. There's a lot more manual work to do small little changes. And then you get into Figma, it's like, oh, everything's easy to move around. And then not only that, but then you guys started giving all the like code, or you give like the CSS rules and all that kind of stuff that you can use. And so obviously this is like a natural evolution. Like, well, okay, not just give you the rules, because then if you don't know how to code, that's hard to like know what to do with. But now literally just create the code for the designer.
Totally. Yeah. And so here, this example finished cranking. So this was going to bring in a mock that had different itemized planets of a solar system. And you can see, based on literally make this interactive as the prompt and the underlying structure of the design that we brought in, it inferred that, each of these different planets is its own entity moving at different speeds. They move around the circles. It created, this functional speed scrubber that works. If I click on one of these planets, there's an overlay that comes out.
Did it know that because of the layer names, or did it actually look at a picture, or like how did it know that?
Yeah, that's right. So if I go back to the original design here, like I can, drill down a bit, and you can see, each of these different planets has been sort of like itemized with a planet name. So like Uranus orbit, along with the arc that it takes. And so like we found this kind of context is like incredibly helpful for the model. And so like you take a random screenshot and give it to any of these tools, like they'll do okay, especially if you could write a longer prompt. But to the point of like, where is Figma different is like Figma is already the workflow design teams, product teams are using to articulate design intent, to detail out specific workflows. And that data is super, super valuable to models. And they can pick up so much context from that to make the output really, really good with a lot less effort.
Makes sense. When I was thinking about what Figma doing AI, I was like, well, right now, at least from like Twitter discourse, I know Twitter's kind of a bubble, but it feels like the design community is very, wouldn't say political, but more passionate about things. And in terms of AI right now, there's definitely been some cohort of like the design community that's the kind of anti-AI. And it feels like you guys are kind of doing a great job of making it clear, like, hey, this is not replacing you. I mean, like if I was a full-time designer, this is amazing because like for me, whether you're designing or coding, it is the art of creating things, right? You're creating things out of nothing. And now the idea that you could be a designer and not know how to code, and you created something out of your brain and turned it into a real design, and then now you turn it into a real product. That's just like, that's amazing. I don't think like most people realize like how magical that is.
100%. Yeah, it's been totally awe-inspiring. And I think we've been blown away by just how much people can make with this. And so maybe just to finish the demo section with a couple fun examples from real customers. This is one of a map, and like, this looks a lot like a mock. And I think traditionally a designer might end here, but like you can actually use this map. And like, that's like one prompt, to add that level of interactivity. And like, imagine the feedback you're going to get in a user study around, exactly how this works to find coffee shops. Based on this. Another fun one, this was for a conference, collecting all of the different iconography and the logos for a team that was planning the conference. And so it became a little bit of like their microsite for the design system of the conference that they all put together in Figma and published and sort of added all of this wraparound with Figma Make.
That is so cool.
We've seen internal tools start to really take off as well. And so this was a really fun one of like a color palette generator that someone on a design team built to make it much easier to get the right sort of compliant colors with the exact mixes in different scenarios. And like, this is the kind of thing that, is so much more powerful as an app that you can explore and send around relative to like a static thing. And you never would have gotten a, internal tools team to fund. But now someone can actually like go ahead and post their team.
Because they don't have to wait, right? They just cut the idea and they design it and then and then it makes it. Yeah.
Totally. And the last one, like I just been blown away by stuff we didn't optimize for, based on how good these underlying models are at a range of different scenarios. And so like people have built full-on 3D video games in this, which is like kind of insane. And so like, here's one that someone built, which is, I hadn't actually even finished this game. There's like a whole different world, a bunch of different spells. There's like creatures that are kind of come out and start going after me. And I'm like, wow, this is insane that like, literally just through prompting, you're able to get to this level of expression.
You should make a old school RPG with this. I used to play EverQuest. That's actually how my career got started.
Yeah.
It reminds me of playing EverQuest and like kiting mobs and like you got to do a spell and you got to run a little bit. And then they're still coming at you.
I don't know. Yeah, someone actually recreated Doom, which is pretty wild.
Very cool. So I'm curious, like, where do you see, who's the user of Figma Make? Is it going to be primarily designers, or are you guys trying to reach out to people beyond designers as well? Because I definitely see how this becomes a superpower for designers. I am curious, how other people outside of design would use this or how they get value out of it if they're not a designer. Or if you guys don't care about that, you're serving designers only, and if other people use it, that's great.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, we optimized for designers to start. And so we've done a lot to, as I mentioned, bring over that context from Figma Design, but also make this a great place for whole product design engineering teams to work together. And so the fact that code is there and you can change that, the fact that you have a pointer and can directly, change different aspects of the experience, like all of these have been designed so that your designer, your PM, your engineer can use this as a collaborative multiplayer surface to iterate on what the product experience should feel like together, which is what Figma's been great at historically as well. And so, that's definitely been the core right now. I'd say, we've started with prototyping as a hero scenario, and we've been surprised how blurry the line is between what is a prototype and what is production.
Right.
And as soon as you can publish and start sharing with users and getting feedback and start using code libraries to hook it up to a real backend, to storing data, we've seen people pitch VCs and get funding on things that they built in Figma Make without anyone else involved, with real users using it.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I think we've been just totally blown away at the breadth of cases people are already using it for.
Yeah.
And maybe to share one more example, We did a ton of dog fooding on this before it went live. It was really helpful in iterating on quality. We all generally have a dog fooding oriented culture at Figma, but this was over the top. We called it the Great Figma Bake Off, and we had like 20 different meetings scheduled for the whole company in every time zone where people from the team would be there to answer questions or troubleshoot or help you work with bugs. We had a competition, like what were the coolest things people made. And all sorts of people made inspiring things. And I think one of the coolest ones for me was someone on the HR team who had zero design background, zero technical background. They use Workday as our source of truth for people data. They found a Workday API and they built a game that uses the real people data of the company that shows 4 faces and 4 names, and you had to guess who is who.
Yeah.
And it like became viral within the company of people like playing this game and trying to, get to know their colleagues.
That's crazy.
And and I was like, wow, this is something that like no one would have funded as like an internal tools effort.
What the hell are you talking about? Right? That's my pitch that, right? Yeah, let's go spend resources on this.
And it's like, it's a persona we didn't optimize for. Like we didn't build Figma Make for HR people.
Right.
But it's just been totally inspiring to see, how accessible it has made the process for everyone.
It's awesome. So, I've heard rumors of an IPO. I don't know if, maybe you can't discuss that or acknowledge that or whatever, but, so I don't know if you can answer this next question or not, but I am curious, like, where does Figma and Figma Make, where does this go? Like, what is, in 3 to 5 years, what's the best scenario where, how does this work?
Yeah, I can't make forward-looking statements.
Okay. Why?
Why? I have 2 kids. I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. And my 6-year-old, over the last year, has started playing iPad games. He's like addicted to Duolingo. He's like a daily active user. He's
that's awesome.
Learning math and chess and that kind of stuff. And he started using Make before we launched. And I was like curious to see, as a very much not our target persona,
right?
Like how understandable would it be? And he is like hooked. Like he will, beg me to like spend more time on Make, and, walking home from school or, at the grocery store running errands, he'll be like, I had an idea for a new one, Daddy.
Oh, that's so cool.
And like, he's made like 6 games now, and he'll sometimes come home from school with like a sketch of like a map or a level. And he's like, take a picture of this. Like we should use this as the starting point. And honestly, it is like mind blowing, and I'm so jealous. Like,
right. Yeah, imagine being a kid, like you have any idea, and like, yeah, I can actually make this now. The AI will help me make it. I have an 11-year-old son, and he grew up in San Francisco around a bunch of like tech and game industry like executives and people like that when he was little, and so he got to see all this kind of creative world there, right? Like artists, things like that. We used to have like artist parties where we'd draw on the walls, and he'd be there with artists drawing on the wall. And now we live in Japan, and so I'm like, kind of miss that he's not, Japan's great, but he's no longer in that kind of environment. And I have been showing him things like Replit. I showed him Replit, and he loved that. Like he made like a little website with that, and he was making just different. One was for Roblox. Thankfully, he's quit Roblox, but it was like different little websites and stuff. And he did one for Minecraft, which I like the Minecraft one better. But the websites were really ugly, so I was like, okay, and he didn't really like how ugly it was, which I think Replit and those guys have gotten a little bit better. But I think something like Figma Make, where he could actually like go in and tweak the design itself too, would be awesome for him to be able to see the whole process of like making it look good and then actually shipping it would be. Incredible.
Yeah, I love his feedback and bug reports and requests.
Okay, I'll get them to you.
And I think to your question on like, what's the future look like, 5 years from now, I think it's like, it's making the path from idea to production, idea to reality so much shorter. And like, seeing even game toy examples with my son makes me realize like the way people think about the workflow, the way you think about what's possible, the way you explore ideas is going to be totally different. And I think in this new world, design is even more important than it has been. And design isn't just pixels. It's empathy for users. It's understanding of your target audience. It's, knowledge of current workflows and where they fall short. It's exploring the whole solution space and thinking deeply about each of the nodes that you might not have had time to, in the old world. Yeah. It's sending down every, animation and interaction of the experience. And so, one of the things I'm really excited about in that future is like software is going to get freaking awesome. Like everything is
Yes.
going to get so much more thought through, so much more explored. Every fit and finish is going to be better. And by the way, there's going to be a lot of low quality software too. Like there's just going to be more
Yeah,
software
totally.
than
Totally.
has ever been made.
It's like in the early
And
days of the web. That's what I've said in the podcast before. It's like the web, I grew up on IRC, like the web used to be like fun, it was messy. It was, it's total mess, but it was easy to get in there, just like tinker and make websites. And now you don't really see that anymore. So I'm hoping that stuff like Figma Make brings that back where like, yeah, the web becomes fun again because people can just have ideas and just easily make stuff.
totally. Yeah. I think we'll see like, even more long tail personalized experiences for different schools and communities and like people building stuff for themselves.
Yeah.
And the stuff that's built for everyone being like even more sophisticated and, helpful in a wider range of scenarios.
I think you'll probably see some really interesting experiments around collaborative creation of things too. Like even though I was like joking before about like, yeah, I'd be trolling my friends and changing stuff. But I think you'll see like communities like actually creating new kinds of projects and stuff together will be fun.
Totally.
Cool. So, this is not a forward-looking statement. This is a total theoretical scenario. So imagine you had a time machine and are you in San Francisco?
I used to be. I moved to New York, actually.
Okay,
recently.
you're in New York. Okay. You're in a New York time machine. You get out. It's 2050. What's different? Is anything different? Does it look the same? Is it still the same bagels and pizza?
I mean, New York bagels and pizza are not going anywhere. Those are New York. Honestly, 2050 is so far out. It's like so hard to imagine. Like 10 years, let alone that far, is like, it's like, man, I have aspirations. I can there's whole conferences on this stuff, and it's like, very hard to predict everything, right? Waymo's coming to New York. I own a car. Figuring out how my kids get to play dates and stuff is hard. I'm excited for AI to get to a level of trust and safety and roll out to like the point where getting around in the world is like a solved problem. And like, that seems like it's happening, which is super exciting. Like Waymo is fantastic. Health is really hard. I personally have celiac disease and was diagnosed about 2 years ago, and it's been a whole learning journey about, what can I eat and what are my sensitivities and so forth, and lots of blood tests and follow-ups. And, even for me, ChatGPT has been like so helpful in understanding what the terminology means and all of that. And I think in broader access to that level of expertise with verifiable trust and awareness is going to be huge for society, and just like people understanding what's happening in their lives and things that are really core, from health to finance to dealing with the insurance because their house burned down, to all of those kind of core fundamental things that are like anxiety provoking, complicated and scary. And it's hard to get experts to actually understand the whole system. And so I think that's going to be like incredibly meaningful in ways that are like hard to really internalize still.
Right.
And then there's like the really out there stuff of like, are we all going to have neural links or glasses on our faces that like understand the world around us and are chatting with us? Are we going to have moon colonies by then? Like, is everyone going to be living longer? Like, I hope all those things are true. And like, I'm an optimist and a tech futurist. But you get into like singularity theory type questions.
Yeah, once you approach the singularity, all bets are off. Who knows what the hell happens, right? The health thing, that's, something I think about a lot. Because like, if you think about a doctor, they go to school for 8 years or whatever it is. And it's all about, it's not all about, a lot of it's about reading a lot of books and trying to retain as much of that knowledge as possible. And maybe if you're lucky, they retain like 5% of the knowledge or something. And then over time, they get more expertise by dealing, with patients. Obviously, AI could take in all that knowledge and over time actually understand all that we've learned and then start expanding upon that. And then combine that with also, collecting more data on us individually, even like down at the lowest level possible. Like, it seems like AI will be able to understand us in the future. Like, eventually we will have AI that like, okay, Nathan, what's going on with your body right now? Like, there's like could be things totally unexpected. Like, oh, some cancer started for this reason, and and then we can kind of solve it this way. That's gonna, I think. That sounds like sci-fi for people, but I really strongly believe that's coming. It may take like 20 or 30 years. Hopefully it's more like 10. But man, that's gonna be such a game changer for people.
Yeah, I'd say also, just on the, the role of AI in the workforce as well. I think we'll see as it continues to evolve and capabilities come out. I think in every sort of industrial breakthrough and revolution, there's been concerns about what it means, and ultimately people have learned new skills and been even more productive on things that are even more meaningful. And so I'm
Yeah.
personally really optimistic and excited. And I think seeing people like my son start to use, Figma Make and tools like it in totally new ways makes me feel like, there's just new frontiers to
Totally.
work on, and like what work means will change.
Awesome. It's been great having you on here. And is there anywhere like people can find you online? Or are you active on Twitter, on LinkedIn, or anywhere like that?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn, David Kosnick, Kossnick.
Cool.
And yeah, thank you for having me on. This was super fun. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks.